And away we go. It is the Nightcap, brought to you by BearcatJournal.com and always presented by our good friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. Go to the app, have them deliver it right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop, or make it down to Dayton, Kentucky, Wednesday through Sunday. Tell them to pump it up and save yourself 15%. All right, Aaron, it's a Sunday
fun day.
It's Sunday fun day. It's a callback Sunday because we haven't done this since football season, but we are in the home stretch. The Bearcats have 7 remaining games in the American Athletic Conference regular season. They are 16-8. They are on a little bit of a roll, even with the Houston loss. They have played their best basketball of the season to this point. And when you look at it, it's getting crowded. And this is a time for them potentially to make a little bit of a move. You've got a very tough one. Tulane just won yesterday against Memphis in overtime. But then you get South Florida at home and a trip to East Carolina before things get pretty tough down the stretch. At UCF, Temple at home, at Memphis, and then I believe they close it out with SMU on Senior Day at Fifth Third Arena. Taking a look at the standings, Aaron. Houston about to go to 10-1. They are up 14 as we record, about to go up by 15 or 16. They're at the free throw line. They are about to go to 10-1. That will move Temple to 8-3.
Mm-hmm.
Tulane 8-3.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis 7-3.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati 7-4. So the top 3, I believe, get a bye. Or is it top 4? The top 4 get a bye. But you're looking at a situation right now that is a very, very crowded group in spots 2, 3, 5 in the American Athletic Conference.
Top 4 wouldn't make sense.
Is it top because of it's 11, so 4 and 5 would have to play?
But yeah, there's 11 in conference.
Yeah. I was thinking it was that, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. 3. I think I don't know. So what are your thoughts as you've gotten to see all of these teams now? UCF was really the last one that UC had not played. As you're handicapping this thing, they're going to be one game out from first or second place. Obviously, still a long way to go.
Well, technically a half game, right? No. You're right. One game. A half game behind Memphis.
Yeah.
1 game behind Temple and Tulane. Well, I mean, your next game is against Tulane, so you got a chance to close distance there. You've already played them once. You got to win 88-77 back late December. Outside of that, though, the other 2 teams.
Actually, the top 5 teams get a bye. I knew the math was off somewhere.
All right. So
The 4 and 5 seed play in the second round, the quarterfinals.
And right now you'd be looking at Memphis.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest
Go ahead.
The biggest concern that I have right now with the rest of the season, because you do have Tulane, you do have Temple, you do have Memphis still on the schedule, and even UCF right behind Cincinnati.
UCF is now actually in 7th place, a half a game behind Wichita State, as crazy as that is.
But they play tough. And what I saw out of them is going to play them in Orlando. I guess the only concern I have, though, with the rest of the season and what you have to play out in those 7 games is those games that you needed to win earlier in the in the conference schedule. You weren't able to close the door against Houston at home. You weren't able to close the door against Memphis at home. You lost to Temple at Temple.
You beat Tulane.
You beat Tulane.
And you get them on Tuesday. You get a chance to sweep Tulane on Tuesday.
They have – I'm just nervous with it being Tulane on – just nervous with it being Tulane on the road, UCF on the road. You do have Temple at home and Memphis on the road. So 3 of those 4 tough games left are on the road. And this is a team that, for all intents and purposes, what's their biggest win on the road? Wichita State, probably.
They've played increasingly better on the road of late.
Agreed. But again, you have to win the big games in order to be in the big boy conversation, right?
Sure, that's what they're tasked to do. That's what happens when you lose those 2 games at home that they lost. You lose Houston at home, or the Memphis at home, and then Houston at home. You weren't able to hold serve. Now those are their only 2 conference losses at home. But I mean, I'm not as concerned about it as you in terms of that specifically. I just think the way it's bunching up right now, like, answer me this. Who's playing better out of that group than Cincinnati?
They are right now playing their very best basketball of the season. That I don't think anyone can really argue. Who's playing better than Cincinnati right now of the group ahead of us? I think that until they beat Memphis, I don't think that you can put Cincinnati above Memphis. Temple also right now this season has a win and a better record has a win against Cincinnati and a better record than Cincinnati. 8-2 in conference is nothing to slouch, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't think you're taking the question as I'm presenting it. Like right now, of those teams, who's playing better than Cincinnati?
I watched Tulane against Memphis, and both those teams, they score a lot of points, man. I watched that game on Saturday.
They also don't play very much defense at all.
Okay. But both those teams,
Cincinnati's been one of the best defensive teams in the country. When you're talking about who's playing the best, like both sides, they do play offense and defense in basketball, right?
I understand, but you're playing both of those teams on the road, and both of those teams have better records and a win against Cincinnati. I want Cincinnati to win these games. I also think that Cincinnati is playing their best basketball. Does that mean that I'm not scared of these 2 teams? No, I'm certainly scared of playing these 2 teams.
Chicken shit. You're scared of everything.
Okay, well, beat them and prove me wrong. Beat them and prove me wrong.
The one I worry about more than anything is probably Tulane. They've got Cincinnati at home. Then they go East Carolina, South Florida on the road, Houston on the road, and then Wichita State at home, East Carolina on the road, and then Temple to end the season at home. Like, that's a pretty favorable close outside of, you've got Cincinnati, Houston, and Temple there. But of your final 7 games, you've got East Carolina, South Florida, Wichita State, and East Carolina again. Catching them is not going to be making up that one game. Now, you beat them, and you're tied.
Yeah.
So you could, and then you're even in head-to-head. So if it is a tie, it goes to tiebreakers as opposed to, if you lose to them, you're essentially 2 games behind them because you lose the tiebreaker straight up because they beat you twice. And you're 2 games behind them with a very favorable schedule.
And if you beat Tulane, you're playing South Florida, East Carolina before you travel to UCF, and all of a sudden momentum potentially is swinging huge in your favor going to Orlando. I get it. But at the same time, like I said, until you beat Memphis and Temple, I don't know that you're necessarily going to move up unless you.
Okay, but Aaron, you're even. You're essentially even or a game behind, whatever, a half a game behind Memphis, right? Memphis still has Temple and UCF at home, Cincinnati, and Houston twice.
Not a favorable schedule.
That's not easy for a Memphis team that we've seen is kind of schizophrenic. They're talented.
They lost to Tulane. And it's a gauntlet of a schedule. They lost to Tulane on Saturday. Certainly not a favorable schedule at all. That said,
they have shown they can jump up and knock off Memphis in the past, which would, certainly and if we're being honest, Houston, yeah,
we're talking about Memphis. Yeah.
If we're being honest, like their tournament hopes are pretty much going to depend on those two Houston games, whether or not they're going to be on the right side of the bubble or the wrong side of the bubble. If they lose both of those Houston games, I don't see how they're in the tournament. They're going to have to win one to make the dance, I think. And then play well the rest of those games too, but you get the big picture of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and if they lose to Cincinnati, all of a sudden their tournament's looking very different as well. So
yeah,
I mean, you can make that case for pretty much any of these teams, right? I mean,
sure. I mean, they're all sitting in that little bunched up group for a reason, right? Like,
yeah, Tulane, Temple, Memphis, Cincinnati are all going to be. I still think that if Cincinnati wins out and wins the rest of their regular season before tournament time, they're looking at the bubble straight in the face.
I don't think so. I don't think they have the resume, unfortunately. They have no quad 1 wins. I think they have 2 quad 2 wins, like 2 and 7, quad 1 and 2. They don't have a quad 1 left on the schedule.
I don't know that they necessarily pop the bubble, but I think that they're absolutely in the conversation. So it
depends on how wide the conversation is.
Depends on everybody else, right? So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of basketball to be played. I don't feel that the rest of this schedule is necessarily winnable the rest of the way, but I also don't know that it's not a gauntlet, right? Like it's
right.
It's where you want. If you want to be considered the second best team in the conference, which I think has been Cincinnati's goal really this season, you have to win these games. You have to beat the teams that are right now positioning themselves better than you.
And here's the other thing: you want to get to that 2 or 3 to avoid having to probably play Memphis in that opening game,
right?
And then Houston right after that.
Yeah, you
want to get into the bottom of the bracket. Like you want to get Temple and Tulane down there with you, and one or the other. And then you win that, you win your first round game, you can beat a Temple or a Tulane in the semifinals. And then you either get Houston kind of in cruise control for the NCAA tournament, or you get a Memphis team that just beat Houston the night before, essentially.
I think you're going to end up in a situation where Memphis and Houston end up beating the hell out of each other because both of them play very physically. And you have to hope for a UCF matchup against Houston at some point in the tournament before you play Houston. Because, again, another physical team that UCF's had them on the ropes a couple times.
Let's see. I don't really see where UCF would, based on the seed lines, I don't see where UCF, unless they fell to the 7 seed and then knocked off the 4 or 5 seed.
They're the 7 seed right now.
I know, but you think they're going to stay there below Wichita State?
I don't know.
I don't.
It's been a weird season. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore.
They have lost 6 in a row, so or 5 in a row. UCF ends Wichita on the road, home Tulsa, at Memphis, Cincinnati, South Florida, at Tulsa, at Temple, East Carolina at home.
So yeah, they could lose some of those.
Yeah, or they don't have Houston in there. They don't have Tulane in there, so they're done with essentially the top 2 teams. They only drew Tulane once, and that was at Tulane. So yeah, I mean that Wichita State game, like if they lose to Wichita State, they might be they might be destined for that 7 game. But they do have Tulsa twice, South Florida and Wichita State and East Carolina lined up over their final 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks.
I don't know.
Selection Sunday 4 weeks from today, or the end of the regular season 4 weeks from today. Selection Sunday 5 weeks from today.
Should be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about how crappy this conference is. At least the way it's been it feels like the past 6 or 7 years, there's been 2 teams that were clearly far and away ahead of everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And then another group from like 3 to 6 that were similar, could jump up and get you on any given night, but weren't exactly what you would call good. And then drop down to the bad teams. This year, it's like there's 1 and 2 through 6 or 2 through 5.
2 through 5.
And I'm taking Central Florida out of that for now, just because they've lost 5 in a row.
Yeah, I appreciate you making sure to call them Central Florida instead of their branded UCF.
Central Florida, Orlando Technical Institute.
Bunch of cornballs who.
So, if you had to guess, where does Cincinnati finish? Record and placement. 7 left to go. They are 7-4 in conference right now.
If I had to guess, 7-4 right now.
Mm-hmm. That's what I said. Wow, dead air is terrible for radio. So
I was adding up. 11-8. I'm gonna say they finish 11-8.
No, that's impossible.
Well, then I added wrong.
What's 11 plus 8?
19.
How many conference games do they play?
I don't know.
18.
Okay. Well.
So 11-7.
Sure. I think they lose at Tulane, at UCF, at Memphis.
So yeah, that's 11-7 because they're 7-4. Yeah. So I'm gonna go 12-6. They get one on the road. They go 12-6 and they finish 3rd. They finished 3rd.
I think they finish. If they go how I said, they'll finish 4th or 5th. About where they are. Depending on what
3rd's going to be tough. It's probably easier for you to pass Tulane just because, like we said, you get a chance to sweep them and pull even with them Tuesday. If not, you're looking at that 4-5 game.
I don't know if you got the chance to watch any of that game against Memphis, but they're tough, man.
Not. But they're also schizophrenic. I just wonder what they look like if somebody's able to actually shut down one of Kendrick Davis or DeAndre Williams. Like, do they have enough if one of those guys isn't having a big night? When both of those guys have big nights, Memphis is really, really tough out.
I was talking about
no argument there. Oh, Tulane?
I was talking about Tulane being tough.
Yeah, they're tough. I don't disagree, but we also saw Cincinnati beat them, right?
We did.
I think
that Cincinnati has a better shot at winning against Memphis than they do against Tulane.
Cook and Forbes are really good, and Cross is playing at a very high level for them. The big 3 versus big 3, right?
Yeah,
the Bearcats big 3 against the Tulane big 3.
I'm happy to be playing them right now when I feel like we're playing our best ball.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
They could probably argue that they are as well, though.
Prove me wrong.
Let's see. I want to look at their last couple games. their last, like where they're trending. They lost 2 in a row, Houston and Tulsa. That Tulsa one's a head scratcher. But they won their last 3, Wichita State, SMU, and Memphis. And then, like I said, they get South Florida, East Carolina, South Florida, Houston, Wichita State, East Carolina after Cincinnati. Oof, that ain't fun. Nah, UC's going to finish 4th. Even if they play well, 4th is kind of where things are heading right now. Unless they jump up and get 2 road scalps. You get two of those big ones on the road, we can have a different conversation. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We will see you tomorrow night. Thanks to Galactic Fried Chicken. He's Aaron Smith. I'm Chad Brendel. This is The Nightcap right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!